It's Nurgle's November. This entire month will be dedicated to the Lord of Disease and Decay. Every lore video, terrain tutorial, and episode of the Greater Wog will center around Papa Nurgle. So if you have any suggestions, questions, or requests, leave us a comment and subscribe to the channel as we succumb to the joyful infections of the Lord of Decay.
What is up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and today I'm back to talk about Warhammer 40K. In this one, we are going into an excerpt from Dark Imperium Godblight, where we have an exorcism of Nurgle being performed. Now, this is pretty interesting because the person himself doesn't know that he actually has a Nurgling inside him. So let's see how this Astartes librarian goes against the blights and poxes of Nurgle. With that being said, let's begin. Diometer Telephus stumbled through life as if it were a thick, glowing fog. He could hardly speak when spoken to, concerning his wife and worrying his subordinates. Only bursts of anger orchestrated by his passenger kept the Medicae away. He wondered what was happening to him, why his hair was falling out and his teeth hurt so much, but every time he considered taking himself off for an examination, the tattle slug would tweak a synapse here, or pull a gangloing there, and the idea would be replaced with the dread of doctors. The tattle slug recognized the signs well enough. Time was indeed running out. It was careful with its diseases, but it was also a demon of plague, and no amount of restraint would stop its host from suffering. Telephus would die soon, and Telephus had no notion of this. Once again, he found himself somewhere he had not expected to be, swaying upon a ledge with nothing but a spore-hazed air between himself and the ground 1,000 feet below. A large military force was leaving the city. Some part of him buried way back in the rear of his skull seemed to find the sight very interesting, so interesting that it let go of its hold on Telephus. The captain blinked. A sick man waking, not quite sure where he was or what was happening. Then his sluggish brain caught on to a situation, and he gasped, nearly fell, and spread his arms wide open upon the stone behind him. He looked to the left and to the right. He knew where he was. A little nook in the city at the dead end of an obscure path, round and furnished with benches, open to the sky but protected from a drop by the tall wall pierced there by the unglazed windows, one of which he must here climb through. It was distant from the main thoroughfares and often deserted, a place frequented by lovers looking for privacy and the occasional suicide. He had no wish to join that second category. The problem was, he was on the wrong side of the wall, his feet balanced on a ledge, his heart in his throat, and he inched along. The ledge was an architectural flourish, barely 3 inches deep and crumbly with age. Grit from the stone rasped under his soles. He dared not lift up his feet, but he shuffled. Growing up in the first landing tended to a blunt man's fear of heights, but this was too much. His hand hit an empty space, and he forced back a rush of panic. It was one of the windows. Shaking with fear, he turned himself around. One hand gripped tight to the window's edge, and he pulled himself through. He sat there shivering, sweat pouring down his face. He had to get himself to the Medicae. There was that strange movement in his head, dampening down his concerns, making him obedient. What's wrong with me? He wondered aloud. His breath stank, his tongue sore. A question I would very much like the answer to, said a deep transhuman voice. Eye lenses lit up eerily blue at the back of the little hideaway. A curtain of vines over a stone pergola obscured the seats there. There were still enough dead stalks to conceal the space marine within. The Astartes came out, ducking to avoid destroying the beams holding up the vines. His battleplate was a deep blue, covered with esoteric markings. His left shoulder pad, green, and bore the badge of the Aurora chapter. I saw you in the Stratagem. Telephus' shaking was getting worse. His stomach boiled with acid. You did? I am Codicier Donus Maxim, I am an advisor to the Primarch. The Space Marine planted his staff carefully upon the ground. And you are unwell. It is nothing, said Telephius. He got up to his feet, hardly able to stand, a combination of illness and fear making him weak. It is something, said Maxim. I have been watching you. I have listened to your thoughts, and you are not yourself, for you have a passenger. A squirming, awful fear flooded Telephius, and that was only part of his own. The Space Marine leveled his staff at Telephius. Lord, wait, please, I will try to save you if I can, said Maxim, his eyes flashing bright, and a pulse of lightning burst from his staff onto Telephius. Telephius' muscles locked, and he fell down. He got up on his knees and tried to crawl away, but Maxim moved in front of him, blocking his path as surely as a tank. I am sorry, the librarian said, and pushed another burst of psychic energy into the captain. What is within you must come out, and it must be slain. Telephius began to retch, his whole body shaking, convulsions like those by an ailing Candid. He felt something inside him, huge, too big to fit inside, and yet it seemed to be coming up out of his throat. Maxim had his staff crouched under one like a pharaoh's wounder's lance, his other hand out, crackling with sparks of warp power, as he drew out the poison in the captain. The thing moved up, squeezing stomach acid into Telephius' gullet and searing it. Impossibly, it seemed to be coming out from his head and his gut at the same time. Telephius' neck bulged, his airways were closed off, and he choked on something indescribably foul. Vomit churned in his esophagus with no way to be released. Maxim closed his hand. I have you now, Neverborn, he said. Struggling against eviction, the thing was drawn out further. It stuck in its throat, soft and wriggling, pushing against the back of his jaw. Pain, terrible, awful pain, consumed Telephius as he tried to scream. But he could only moan deep within his chest. It became worse and worse until, with a sudden click, his jaw detached, flapping wide on his chest, and the thing inside of him plopped into the floor, steaming and vile. A buzzing blackness cast itself over Telephius like a hood, but still he was conscious. He had time to get a good long look at the monster that had been hiding inside him, to see its stubby arms, its body, its insect wings beating freely as it tried to escape. Until Maxim pinned it to the ground, and he blasted it from existence with a pulse of his warp-born power. Unable to speak and clutching his dislocated jaw, Telephius collapsed into a puddle of blood and vomit on the paving slabs. I need a Medicaid team at my position now, in full protection gear, Telephius heard Maxim say. Then the blackness closed around him, and he was spared any further pain. And with that being said, guys, that is this excerpt from none other than Godblight. So here we see a little bit of like body horror as we have this demon that's impossibly large coming out of this man's throat. And then you could just picture the bulging, the pain, the putrescence of what it might taste like and feel like to have this thing that you know shouldn't be inside you forcefully come wriggling out until your jaw dislocates. Yeah, that's crazy. On the one hand, I mean, you did survive this exorcism, but on the other hand, you had to experience this agonizing pain, and you're just in a puddle of like, your own vomit and blood, but you know you get to live. So, I don't know, if it was me, I would have just told the Space Marine to just, obliterate me with warp lightning. A 2-for-1 special. But at the end of the day, these are the kind of cool things that like we don't really get to see too often in the novels or in the lore when it comes to Nurgle. It's usually just like, oh, the demons are on the outside, they're tearing apart humanity. But to see them do this from within, from the inside out, that's pretty gnarly. But anyway, if you guys have any other lore instances of like an exorcism being performed or any other body horror novelizations with Nurgle, please let me know in the comments below. And yeah, that's all I got for today. Comment, like, subscribe, share, and we'll be seeing you for more Nurgle November this month. As always, guys, it's the Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Always used to put my freedom first in any situation.